Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soulfire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soulfire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom and Tips, Tricks, and Triumphs Tuesday. So if this is your first time listening, I'm a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, Reiki master, and a life coach. But I like to call myself a change adventure navigator because I love guiding clients through obstacles and adversity to find their path, purpose, and peace. So today I want to talk a little bit about how to amp up your confidence, because I had a client come to me with that question, feeling a little lack of confidence this week. So I want to give some tips on how to start feeling more confident or keep your confidence up, because I think it's something that sometimes if we're not paying attention, we can lose a little bit. So first of all, don't listen to your negative self-talk. And if you do find yourself saying, negative stuff, having negative thoughts, counter them. Two, make sure that you know your stuff. So a lot of times we're not confident because we haven't done our homework, or we don't really, feel confident about whatever it is that we're trying to do or talk about. So make sure that you do know your stuff. Number three, talk kindly about yourself, always. If somebody, gives you a compliment or something, don't say, that's not true or whatever. Just accept it and make sure that you're always saying kind things about yourself. Be curious, ask questions. And if you feel like you're afraid, if something scares you, face that fear. Identify your areas of weakness. We all have them. And, identify what they are and then do what you need to reinforce. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Realize that you are unique and individual, and it's just really a waste of time and energy to be comparing yourself to someone else. Keep learning new skills. There's, like zillions of things in this world to learn, and you'll never run out. And then last of all, be your own best BFF. So those are my tips for being more confident. We have a great show planned for today. That guy sitting there is Darren Dowler, and he's a singer, guitarist, songwriter, author, screenwriter, director, and filmmaker. At 17, while playing in local bands in Central Florida, he made the decision to make his living performing in the visual and audio arts in some way. He's played music and shared stages with people such as Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers, Paul Revere and the Raiders, the Backstreet Boys, the Lettermen, Jardine of the Beach Boys, the Fifth Dimension, the Ojays, Puckett, and the Union Gap, Benny Mardones, Bertie Higgins, and many more. He at one time was the youngest inductee into the vocal group Hall of Fame for his work with the Lettermen, whom he now shares a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame with. In 1989, he appeared on Broadway in Elvis, the American musical, and went on to act in over 20 films and television shows, including Criminal Minds with Joe Mantegna, Spielberg's Eagle Eye, Hancock with Will Smith, and then he starred in Rock and Roll the Movie, Christmas in Hollywood, and Grace of the Father. Currently, he's performing as a solo music artist, still writing and producing songs and writing and directing film and television projects. He's the author of a published novel, The War of the Angels. He also owns at the soon-to-open Kansas City Acting School, where he'll be teaching would-be actors and television stars. And if you don't live in Kansas City, he's also offering online classes for people worldwide. So I'm really happy to have him here today. Hi, Darren.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So if you could just start out by telling us a little bit more about yourself and what got you to where you are today.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of the stuff that you said in your introduction has helped me get here. You know, it was a long, hard road at first when I was younger, because I pretty much left my home and family at 17, drove to New York in a car that broke down, and I wanted to learn my business from the best in the world. So at that point, I believed they were in New York. So I went up there and I lived in the city for a while, and I started my acting classes, auditioning for theater, playing in rock and roll bands. And I had a family they were all musicians as well. And from all the way back to great grandparents. And as a matter of fact, I'm related distantly to June Carter and Johnny Cash and William Lee Golden of the Oak Ridge Boys. And so we're my family kind of hails from when they got it from Europe, they hailed from the Kentucky mountains. So everybody played and sang something because there was no other entertainment. But I was born in the Midwest, moved to Florida. And I noticed at a very early age that I was not happy unless I was creating in some way. And I had to be creating something and hopefully something positive. And so I started acting and singing and playing guitar at pool decks and doing whatever I could do to create something positive, music, whatever it was. And as you just said, I made the promise at 17 years old. I kind of realized I tried a bunch of different jobs when I was younger, you know, between 17 and 25 while I was trying to get going. Different things from college to the Marine Corps to I tried all these different things. I joined the Marines, never ended up having to serve. And it was just the universe's way of saying, no, you're not supposed to do this. You're trying to get away from this music and creativity thing because you're afraid of it. That's exactly what it was. It was fear. I was afraid I couldn't be successful because I'd seen so many relatives kind of struggle before. And then this voice, to me, the voice is God, but this voice inside me just kept saying, nope, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. I tried to get out of this business many different ways, especially when I was younger. I tried to be an athlete, to go to college, to become something, as they say. And I was just never happy unless I was performing or teaching. I found later on in life that performing is my love, but teaching and sharing that joy with others is my other love. So then I left New York and came back to Florida for a while. And then I went out west with the goal of getting into television, film, and music. And when I went out there, it was kind of like, that's when my career kind of began. I started off singing and dancing in production shows in big casinos, the adult production shows, as they call them. And then I got a lucky break. A whole bunch of headliners came through where my show was. And back in like 1995, I remember Tony Butalo of the Lettermen came to me and said, "Hey, how would you like to sing with us?" And I was kind of shocked because I'm a rock and roll blues kind of pop singer, and they're extremely like kind of old school harmonies, straight ahead. And I mean, one of the best shows I've ever seen, and still to this day. And they're a wonderful group, best harmony group in the world, I think. And so I ended up spending 10 years with them, which was a joy because I toured with some of the best harmony singers in the world, which was part of my journey. It helped me get ready for writing and producing all of my own music. These guys taught me the art of harmony. And so then when I produce records now, there's always a lot of harmonies in there because of what happened back then. And I forgot to mention the Lettermen, I worked with the Backstreet Boys as their very first guitar player. And I kind of learned some of the harmony things that were going on there too. So it was an interesting journey, but I've never been happy just being a musician. I wanted to do other things.
So to get back to the very beginning, I understand that you started singing professionally at age 14. How did that come about?
It's not something I wanted to do. Like I said, again, it was the universe telling me to do this. I was a little kid, I was working in a hotel. I remember it very well. I was making $2.36 an hour, which was minimum wage then in Florida. Sorry to admit that. I'm showing my age a little bit going back. But I was carrying towels to floors on a hotel because that's the only job I could really get. And somehow this gentleman that owned a pub, figure that out, a 14-year-old kid in a pub, he knew my mother somehow through their business and work. And he heard that I sang and played guitar. And I only did that for myself at that point. I'd not even sung in front of people. And I wasn't planning on it. I wasn't going to do that. And he came to me and said, "Hey, your mom says you sing and play guitar." He goes, "I need somebody to sing and play guitar in my pub at night, like 4 or 5 nights a week." And I was like, "No, I can't do that. That's terrifying." Now, understand, I was making $2.36 an hour at the time, so I was lucky to make $20 a day. And he goes, "Well, it's 2 hours a night. I'll give you $50. And I was like, instantly, my fear went away.
Okay. So I know you live in Kansas City, Missouri now. What motivated you to move from LA to Kansas City?
Everybody asks that question. Yeah, I was never one who was real fond of LA ever. I was there for business only. I liked the beach. I had some friends, but I never really liked that compact on top of, jungle of $2 million minimum homes and all that stuff. So I was there for 25 to 30 years, but I spent a couple of years in Branson, Missouri with Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers and Revere the Raiders. And when I was there, my wife has family here in Kansas City. So I came up here and spent a lot of time. And my first thing was just the people are so wonderfully nice here. They really are. I mean, people say that all the time, but it's true. In California, in 30 years, I got to know 2, maybe 3 neighbors. The first week I was in my house in Kansas City, the entire neighborhood came by and introduced themselves and brought us brownies and chili and gifts. And I was like, wow, I'm just not used to this kind of Midwest hospitality. It was wonderful. And then I spent some time here, and I considered going back to Florida when it was time to leave LA. We left LA about 2 years ago when it got crazy out there. Just when everything went nuts, we got out right before that, and it was a good time to go. And I remember coming to Kansas City going, you know what? I don't have to be in Los Angeles anymore. I don't have to be in Miami anymore, New York. I said, I can do what I do from anywhere, because I'm lucky. I'm very fortunate. I have my own business now with my fans and with the other things that I do. I've created this, I don't know what you'd call it. It's a concoction of things that I do that I make money at. And, but I found I can do it here. And not only can I do it here, but I wake up every day happy here. I love my home here. My home here would be between $2 and $3 million in Los Angeles. There's no question about it. I mean, no question about it. Land, I've got land here, and it's just a beautiful place to live. And I know you'll understand this. When I go to bed at night here, I feel peace. I really do. I feel peaceful here, and I feel like this is a home, and I love creating here because I don't have so many distractions. Well, one of those distractions, a $5,000 a month rent payment that I have to make to live in Los Angeles. But I really do enjoy it here, and I love the people. And I feel, for the first time, really, because I've been on the road my whole life, I really have. I'm that guy that started at 17 and never stopped. And I've been traveling forever. But I feel like I feel home. I feel like I have a home here. And that's a nice feeling.
Great. So tell us a little bit about the songs that you're just about to release. I guess the final 2 songs that you produced with Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Yeah, they're there'll be 2 of the songs on the album. The album is called Back to the Garage. I've recorded with so many groups over the last 25 years and done so many styles of music. I've always made my living in this business. So having that extra time to do what I wanted, as we all want to get sometimes, didn't really bring itself to the forefront. So when I resigned from the Paul Revere and the Raiders about 2 years ago, just because I had a bunch of other opportunities to me. And the band was, the gentlemen in the band, I love them all dearly, but they're all quite a bit older than I am. And they were kind of ready to retire and I wasn't. And so we were starting to run into scheduling conflicts. So it was just better that I just decided it was time for me to just go be me for the first time ever. I've either been acting in a show or touring in a Broadway show or playing in a band, somebody else's band usually. You know, don't get me wrong, I was singing with Bill Medley, the Righteous Brothers, one of the greatest honors, Paul Revere and the Raiders, the Lettermen, all these groups, great honor, but I wasn't doing my thing. I was doing their thing. And those guys really want to keep it that way. So I'm now recording an album that I've wanted to record for decades, songs that I've been writing and working on that I feel are me. But 2 of those songs, right before Paul passed a few years ago, he pulled me in for a meeting and he said, Darren, I know that I said I was happy with what I've always done. He goes, but I want to try it again. He goes, now that I've got another songwriter in the group, why don't you get together with the other guys, write me an album. And I said, Paul, that's awesome. I'd love to hear you saying that because there's an outlet for it. And so I started writing an album for Paul Revere and the Raiders. Unfortunately, after I got done with the second song, we recorded the second song, Paul passed away. And once he passed away, I'm actually going to write a book about all of this one day. Once he passed away, there were some obstacles and some things that came about that weren't there before. There was friction with Paul not there that wasn't there before with members and people. This guy wants to release the song. This guy doesn't want, this guy wants to write a new song. I mean, it was just wonderful, you know, the American way, you know, democratic thing, you know. And so, you know, no hard feelings of any kind, but we never released the 2 songs. But I get emails almost every day of Paul Revere and the Raider fans saying, please, and this has been years, please release those songs. We want to hear the final 2 Paul Revere songs. So I decided, since this album is special to me and Paul and the guys were so special to me and still are to this day, I said, you know, this is going to be a special moment when I release this album. So I'm going to put the last 2 Paul Revere and the Raider songs on there. And they'll be a little different than the rest of the album because the rest of the album is very current, modern day blues, pop, rock. And that will be, they have a very 60s sound, these 2 songs. So they will be the final 2 songs produced by Paul Revere, which is pretty exciting.
Great. Well, I saw you live, I think it was 2014 at the Snoqualmie Casino in the Seattle area. So
I remember that.
Yeah, that was one of the last shows that Paul was part of too. So yeah,
that's true.
I'm glad I saw that one. So so the album that you've been referring to, I understand that you're finishing up the Back to the Garage that you started 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So tell us a little more about that.
Well, I actually started a couple of the songs that will be on the album. It's so funny how songs never die. I played some of these songs in my band when I was 22 years old. I started writing way back then. I wrote songs in Florida that kind of became regionally known by the people that would follow my band and things like that. And so I started writing all these new songs. And one of my friends, just out of the blue, sent me a tape of me doing a bunch of songs with my old band back in my 20s in Florida. And a couple of the songs in there were so good. I was just like, wow, I wonder if I can do something with these today, because I never really did record them and put them out. So I just, by chance, I did a little piece of one of them and put them up on my Facebook and Instagram pages. It's called I Need You. It's a cool little song. It's got kind of a reggae beat. You know, I play it on my acoustic guitar. And I just put out about a 60-second little quip saying, here's a song I wrote 30 years ago. I think you guys are really going to like this. And I got so much response from that song, people saying, you've got to put that on the album. We like that song the best we've heard yet. I was like, wow. And that was one of my, popular songs back then. I was like, that's 30 years ago and people still like this song. And I had an 18-year-old writing me. I had a 40-year-old writing me, a 65-year-old writing me. I was like, that's quite the demographic. That's the one thing I'm going to give the kids of today. Are they the millennials still, or is there something new going on? I'm not sure.
No, the millennials start at 25. So the kids are not millennials.
Oh, they're not. Oh, I thought millennial was after 20.
No, it's 20. Well, millennials are 25 to 40.
Got you. Okay. Well, then the even younger ones, whatever they're called these days, I give them a lot of credit, because in my day, when I was a teenager, we were given categories of music and you liked one or the other. You were supposed to listen to one or the other. And if somebody was more than 8, 10 years older than you, you didn't really listen to their music. That's just the way it was. But these kids today, I'll tell you something, they're a different breed. They're into quality. I mean, I went to a rockabilly convention not too long ago, and to my amazement, there were about 5,000-6,000 people at this thing in Las Vegas. To my amazement, the majority of them were under 30 years old, out of thousands of people. So I asked a kid one day. I said, I'm a little bit older than you. I said, I gave him a CD. I said, do me a favor, listen to the CD. Tell me what you think. I want to know if my music is too old for you. I'm just curious. I was just testing a demographic. Really nice young kid. And he listened to it and he wrote me back. He says, no, I wish there was more of this on the radio now, because I don't really like what's on the radio. I find it kind of junk. He used the word junky. He goes, but that's all I have to listen to. He goes, can you please put this out? And I found that to be really true with my Instagram page more than any other. I have 60% of the people that follow my music on Instagram are much younger. They're in their 20s and 30s. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. But I give them credit because I've learned that my daughter, I have a 16-year-old, and I give her credit too, because she's just into quality. She's not prejudiced against age or style. It's just quality that they're looking for, I found.
Yeah, that's good. Good to hear. So, tell us a little bit about your newest project, the John Christian, the television pilot that you're working on with your daughter.
Yes. Yeah. My daughter she's been training as a singer and as an actress since she was about 6 years old. And she's been in a lot of stuff. She's done television stuff. She's done concerts. She's done. She's been in internationally released YouTube promotions and things like that. And she's a pro level girl, even though she's 16 years old. So I always had this dream of doing something with her. Of course, we've always wanted to do something together. So I've got this new show called John Christian, which is a show about a hardcore federal bounty hunter who gets cast into being a single father for the first time in his life with a daughter he didn't even know existed, because the mother disappears. And so he's got to help take care of this girl, has no idea what he's doing. But in the meantime, he has to catch these really, really bad people who infiltrate his world, and they find out about the daughter and things like that. And so Raina is going to play my daughter in the show. I'm playing John Christian. And it's a show I wrote. It's in the style of Netflix, Hulu, Prime thing. Those will be the clients we're presenting it to see who wants to buy it. And it's a real action-packed adult drama, 42-minute drama per episode, approximate. And so yeah, it's one of the projects I'm most excited about, because it's a conglomeration of talents of some of these wonderful, talented people that I've met through the years, and some new talents that I'm meeting here in Kansas City. To my surprise, Kansas City has a pretty thriving film industry here. I was like, there's some pretty talented filmmakers here, and there's a lot of actor talent here too. Good theater scene here. So not only am I excited about the show, but I'm excited that we're going to be bringing this element of, I thought I had a stain on my shirt, it's a reflection. It's this element of a television and film to Kansas City, because there is no industry here right now, but there's a lot of talent wishing there was. And since, as you know, even in Arizona, it's not LA anymore. Atlanta made more movies than LA last year. Albuquerque is going to make more movies than LA this year. and the North Carolina area and South Carolina area, Miami. There's production all over the country now. So the competition is fierce, but I love producing good content. So we're going to see what we come up with.
So what is it like or been like working with your daughter?
It's fantastic. She started singing with me just here and there. When she comes see a concert, I drag her up on stage. I think the first time she was about 8 or 9 years old. Well, the first time I held her on stage, she was 2 years old, even less than 2. I think she was 18 months old. But it's really a wonderful thing. I never really thought about it. I have a little different idea of what this would be like, because when I grew up, I ended up singing with my mother's band. My mother's an incredible singer to this day. She still performs. And I sang with her and her band in Daytona Beach for 2 years. I came back from the road. She said, "Can you sit in on guitar for a couple of weeks till we get a guy?" I said, "Sure." And I stayed there for 2 years because I was having so much fun. And then, so I know what that's like to sing with your parent, and just the fact that I'll be doing something with her that we can both remember the rest of our lives. I mean, you know what it's like. It's when you go to work, especially me, sometimes I'm gone a month at a time. I'm away from my family because I'm performing. But with the John Christian Show, if I sell the show, and I believe I will, because it's a really good concept, it's something we can do together and be together all year with. And we get to be, instead of being gone 10 hours a day, we'll be together for 10 hours a day. So it'll be fantastic, because I'm going to have the entire family involved in the show. So the idea is to let the family spend as much time together as is possible.
Great. So the book you wrote, War of Angels, what's that about?
That's it.
Okay. What's it about?
It is a sci-fi fantasy book. I've always had a fascination with angels amongst other subjects. So I researched everything that I could find about angels. And to my surprise, there's a lot more out there than your average person would ever know. I found my earliest reference to an angel in a 9,000-year-old pyramid, which really surprised me, because I was always under the assumption that the first reference to an angel was about 4,000 to 5,000 years ago in the Sumerian writing. And it wasn't. It was in a 9,000-year-old pyramid. I mean, the sculpture is just vivid. It's an angel. And so I read every book I could on angels. And so I created this story about the Archangel Michael. And Amazon calls me a faction writer. I take all the facts I can find, and then I weave fiction in and around the fact to make a story. That's kind of what I do.
Okay.
And so with this book, Michael the Archangel comes back and finds his twin brother, which is Satan. And basically, they end up having a second final war on Earth today, in today's world. They have a final war on today's world for the Earth itself and for all of mankind. And it's a really big book. It's a 400 and some page book. It's a biggie. We're going to start shopping it this year in LA to make a movie out of it. And it's one of my favorite achievements. I enjoyed writing this book. I have so much downtime on the road that when I'm on an airplane, on a train, or whatever I'm doing, I would get my laptop out rather than wasting time. I said, you know what, I'll utilize this time and I'll write. So I wrote this book, and the reviews have been fantastic. It's on the worldwide market now. I just had a guy write me from Scotland. He bought it in something Smith, which is a bookstore in Europe. I'm not sure what's W.E. Smith or something like that. But he said he just loves the book. And so it's got romance, it's got war, it's got friendship, it's got some funny moments, but it's a pretty serious book. And just imagine you and I are sitting here talking, and you hear this clap of thunder, and you look up and the sky parts, and 3 million black angels, 15 foot tall, come screaming down onto the earth and just start killing everything. That's kind of what the book is like.
Okay. I'm not liking that too much.
Well, that's what Michael's for. He tries to save the day. So.
Okay. So, as you mentioned before, you come from a long line of singers and performers. So is that really what influenced you to perform, or?
That's an interesting question. It absolutely is to a certain extent, because my grandfather gave me a guitar and made me play it when I was 8 or 9 years old. My father was a singer and a recording artist. You know, I didn't know him most of my life because when I was young, he was gone performing. He and my mother were married. So, and my mother was a singer. My uncles and aunts, and I told you the June Carter, Johnny Cash story and all those extended relatives and things like that. But I honestly wanted to be an athlete because, you know, I was raised kind of in a semi-poor family. And I wanted to get out of that. And I thought my out was to become an athlete and go to college, Florida Gator, and to go to college and play sports to get a scholarship and then get a degree. But I kept getting shoved back into music. I tried to like walk away from it, but these opportunities would open and I'd end up doing it again. So in the end result, realizing, yes, it was my family that initially drove me to do this because I watched them doing it growing up. My mother tells a funny story that when I was born, she would come home, you know, I was an infant and she would come home and my dad's band would be in the living room rehearsing. And she said, and she would get so mad. She'd go, your crib was right between the two guitar amplifiers. She goes, I was afraid you were going to grow up deaf. And I was like, she would get mad at him. And, but yeah, that was an inspiration. And, but just the fact that I was kind of told by the big man upstairs, I was kind of told, nope, you're not doing this. You're doing this. And so I finally just gave in one day. I said, you know what? I have tried. I mean, I tried 10 or 12 different things. It didn't work out because I kept getting dry. I said, I'm obviously supposed to do this. So I just gave in and said, this is what I'm doing with my life. And so from that moment forward, I was like, that's it.
Okay. Sometimes that's how it happens.
Yeah.
So to this point, you've done, you know, a little bit of everything in the entertainment industry. So do you have something that's your favorite or that you're most passionate about?
Oh, that's a tough question. I would have to say that performing musically and acting or being on a film set, whether I'm directing or acting, but I think probably acting. I would have to say I have an equal love for being on a stage, playing music, and being on a film set, making a movie. I've been asked that question a lot of times, and I always wished that I could be one of those guys that goes, no, I really just like doing this, because one of my downfalls in my early career was I wanted to do so much. And you know how a lack of focus can sometimes get you to do nothing. And, but then I just realized one day, you know, and here's how I really knew it. So back in 2009, I was in a whole bunch of shows by that time, but back in 2009, I actually directed my own first movie, which was Rock and Roll the Movie, which is on Amazon right now. And it was the weirdest thing. From the second I walked on the set, it was like I had been there. I mean, I'd never directed a movie before. I never produced a movie, did a script breakdown. I was just an actor. But it was the weirdest thing. I felt like I'd done it for 1,000 years. And when I walked under, I remember turning to my wife saying, I found home. This is where I'm supposed to be. And that's how I felt. I really felt like I'd found home. And the beautiful thing about making my own movies is in the entertainment business, especially not so much today, but you go back 20 years ago, they used to tell you, I'd had agents tell me, you do one thing. And I had one agent says, so you sing, you dance, you play guitar, you play in bands, you're an actor. He goes, I don't know how to make money on you. I said, why don't you make money all those ways? They didn't get it back then. They didn't understand you could do multiple things back then. It was actually a strike against you, where today it's a plus. Today you can't get in anything unless you sing, dance, act, do the whole thing. And so I just, oh gosh, I remember that like it was, yeah. But today, the beautiful thing about the movie business is I get to make a movie. Then when I'm done, if I want to, I don't have to, but when I'm done, I can sit down and write a whole bunch of music for that movie. And that's where I call it 360 creativity. I was never happy doing one thing. And like you said earlier, I wasn't happy doing one thing. So I just had to give into that, because one day I just went, you know, I can't listen to these agents. I can't listen to this manager or this casting director or this music producer over here. I just can't listen to them. Obviously, with all this drive and desire inside myself, I wasn't meant to do one thing. So then I had some friends who taught me about positive thinking and affirmation and allowing the positive to come into you, and like you said, talk nice about yourself, believe in yourself, spread positive vibes. And I started doing that. I still do it to this day. And that's when things started to open up for me. I'll never forget when the first time I heard, you know what, the success is already yours. Everything in life is already yours. You just have to live like you've already achieved it and believe it's yours. And as soon as I started doing that, little door, it didn't flood in. I mean, I didn't get rich or anything overnight, but all of a sudden one little door would open. I'd walk through that door and I just go, I'm just going to walk through it. It opened. I want to go in there. So I'm going to go in. Then that door opened another door, and that door opened another door, and that door opened another door. And then I found that I was doing everything I wanted to do by getting up every day, being positive, getting the clutter out of my life. That's a big thing I profess, is getting the clutter out of your life and focusing in on the few things that you really like. And ever since that time, I've not only been successful at it, but I'm happy.
Great. So you've done both on camera and live stage performance. Do you have a preference for either, or do you like them both equally?
Musically, I like doing live stage performance, like concerts. I love doing a concert. I've got a promo I'll send you. You can see kind of what my concert's really different type of concert. Yeah, without question. I like doing live music concerts more so than like doing music videos or playing in a movie or something like that. That being said, I'm one of the very few actors out there. I prefer to be in front of a camera rather than on a stage when it comes to acting. And not counting musicals, of course. If you're doing a musical, then of course the stage would kind of blend the two. But I love being on a film set so much. And I found that there's, in my early days of learning to act, the acting coaches would all say the same thing, including the biggest of the bigs in New York. They'd say, acting's acting, whether you're on stage, whether you're on film, and nothing could be farther. I'm writing a book right now called The Actor Inside You, to go along with my stuff that I teach people around the world. Acting on television and film is not like acting on stage. And I know the old school guys say it is, but it's not. The basics are always the same. Finding your core and working from that core outward, that's always the same. But there's a technique, and there are tools you can use in film acting where I truly believe I built this toolbox. It's called the Toolbox for Actors. I built this toolbox so that anybody who has just this much talent can become a good actor. If you have no talent, nobody can help you. You just can't. There's certain people who just aren't meant to do acting, and some people aren't meant to be cops. Some people aren't meant to be actors. Some people aren't meant to be chefs. It's just the way it is. We can't do anything about that. But if they have even an inkling of talent, I found these tools that will help them grow into a quality actor, especially if they want to do television and film. Acting is acting, but I kind of specialize in teaching people how to act on a film set. And being that I went to film school, and being that I am a director and a writer, screenwriter, I have a 360-degree view of being on a film set, where a lot of people don't have that. And so I can give actors advice that maybe somebody else can't, who's just acted. Because believe me when I tell you, you can work up a part all day long, and you hit that set and the director looks at you and goes, you know what? I don't want you to do it like that. I want you to do it like this. That's your job on a movie set, is to do what the director tells you. And that, what I just said, happens all the time. It just happened to me. I did a movie called Palau a couple of years back about Luis Palau. And I played Billy Graham, Reverend Billy Graham. And I worked on this, and I got his accent. And I mean, being an impressionist as well, I have a little leg up on doing solid, actual people. And so I had Billy Graham pegged, and I walked on set in Buenos Aires. I walked on the set, walked through all the crew, the trailers. I got to the director tent, and he shook my hand. We had breakfast, and he goes, now, how have you been working on Billy Graham? And I said, well, I worked up everything. I've watched 100 speeches. I've found everything I could watch about him. I've learned his voice. I've learned his inflection. He goes, I don't want you to do that. I went, what? He goes, I want you to be Darren. I want a little Billy Graham in there, but I want you to forget the North Carolina drawl. I want you to forget, I want some Southern in there, but not North Carolina. I mean, he threw all this stuff at me, and I'm going on in front of the camera in 10 seconds. And that's your job as an actor. When the director calls something, you have to be able to do it.
So how do you be Billy Graham being Darren?
Well, Darren's in every role I do anyway, but I had to, when I first worked him up, now we had a draw that we put in there for him because he believes. And so I just pulled back on that, and I made it about half as thick as that. And then I remembered my own family's draw because they've got that Kentucky thing going on. So I just turned it a little bit. I've studied accents for 25 years. So I turned it just a little bit, and I went back to my roots. I said, well, when I was a kid and I first moved to California, I had a pretty thick Southern drawl from my Kentucky relatives, and everybody always laughed at it. So I worked on getting rid of it for a long time. And so I just went back to my roots, and I said, well, that's what he wants. I'm just going to be Darren. I'll put a little Billy Graham in here and there because I spent all this time working on it. But I'm just going. We always joke about it. He wanted me to be a movie star and not an actor. And we joke about that in the business. There are movie stars like Clint Eastwood who can only do one thing, but you want to watch him do it.
Yeah.
And you got Johnny Depp, who's different in every role.
So what motivated you really to start your acting school, and what are your aspirations for that?
Well, it's actually an unknown fact to a lot of people. I have been teaching acting, other than a few years here and there, nonstop since 1990. I was in a Broadway show touring the U.S. for 2 years, and I ended beginning in 1990. So I went back to Orlando because everybody told me, oh, go to Orlando, not L.A. Orlando's going to be the next Hollywood. We all thought that was going to happen because Universal Studios started producing shows back then. So I went to Orlando, and I got there, and there were only 2 or 3 shows filming. And there weren't that much going on. But here was the thing. Somebody who was connected with Burt Reynolds, and I forget who it was. Burt Reynolds had a school in Jupiter, Florida. It was one of the only professional acting schools in Florida at the time. This guy came to me and he said, look, Jupiter's too far. We got all these Orlando kids who work at Disney. We got some talent here. He goes, but they need to be trained, but we need them trained fast. He goes, can you take some actors and in 6 weeks have them ready to walk on set? And at that point, I didn't have a job. So I was like, yes, I can. So I made a sign. I rented a place. I called it the Actor Shop, which was my name up until 2 weeks ago for 30 years. All of a sudden, he said, if you'll do this for us, because we need these kids for the shows right now, you do this for us, we'll fill your classroom and you can name your price. And I was like, so I said, well, I won't rape you guys over it. Make it $30 a kid per week and bring it on. So it was 20 people per class. Well, they just filled them up. 1, 2, 3, 4. I was having a hard time keeping up with it. To keep this a short version. So when I went out to LA, I found acting schools that I liked, I could not find in LA. I looked everywhere. I just didn't find the type of teaching. There were good schools, but it wasn't the kind of teaching I was used to from New York. So I opened a place in Los Angeles when I moved out there called the Actor Shop, and I started teaching in LA. And then this went on forever. And then when I decided to come back to Kansas City, I really wasn't going to do this again, but I ran into this same situation where, knowing that I'm going to start producing shows here, some young actors are coming up to me going, I would like to do this, but I don't think I had the experience. How can I do this? And I said, well, I could probably work with you. I work with people online. If you want to do an online private class with me, we can do that once a week. So all these kids are like, yes, let's do it. So then I just decided, it'd be a lot easier if I just had a room like I used to do, and I can have 20, 30 people at a time come in, and we can have a big class and go through everything together, and I can work these people. And I work my people to death. They're sweating when they leave my class. I mean, I really work them. I put them through the trials that I've learned over 50 years of acting. And so it started with teaching online here. There was a thing called takelessons.com contacted me and said, look, we need some more acting coaches. Would you be interested in being an acting coach for us? I said, well, and it's online. I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty good. I might try that, because I get to stay in my recording studio and do my thing. And then it just turned out that, not to knock them or anything, that it's a really great business model, but they keep almost all the money from your lessons. So I was like, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. So then I just decided, well, there's another one called lessons.com that contacted me. They're a much more fair platform. So I started working with them. And then I just realized I don't need either of them. People are contacting me all the time about acting coaching. So I either get referrals or people contact me. I keep a very small stable so that I don't overwork myself because I've got a lot going on, but they get a real quality online acting class.
Great. So the next question is kind of off topic, but I've been asking all my guests for a while now. So what has surprised you most about life so far?
Ooh, boy, that's a good question. It goes back to that old line, life is what happens while you're making other plans. It's that old line. What is really, I think what has probably surprised me so much, and I hope a lot of young people hear this because I really want to get this message to some young people, is don't try to do everything. Because I did. It's really tough and you won't accomplish much if you try to do everything. Really find out what you love in life and do that. What I have found most surprising about life is that, first off, it's wonderful, but it's a very humbling experience to go through a lifetime because you realize that you're just a very, very small cog in a very big machine. But what has surprised me most about life are people. You see the news every day and we hear all this junk that's going on around us 24/7, whether it's, I don't know, political, medical, whatever. And it gives you a real dark image of the planet. It really does. It makes you go, gosh, I don't even know why as a race we're allowed to exist. We're terrible. But I keep running into these wonderful people that are just so kind and so giving. I moved into this neighborhood. I've got the most wonderful people living around me in my neighborhood. It's actually a community, which I really like because I didn't have that in LA for 30 years. I had friends, but I didn't have a community. And I was terrified of bringing my children up out there. And here I feel really good about my kids being here. And being a dad's a lot easier here because you're not stressed and worried about them so much. You're still worried, but not so much. But I guess that people are what surprised me most about life, because just when the media wants you to give up on them, you realize there's some really, really wonderful people in this world still. And if the media would focus on the good ones a little bit more and the bad ones a little bit less, I think more people would see that.
Great. Yeah, that's a good discovery to have, or a good surprise. So we're just about out of time. If you could leave the listeners with one thought from today's show, what would you want that to be?
I would say this. Pick all the things you want in your life and get them into your life. Take all the things that are in your life that are stressful or you don't want in your life, and one by one, get those out of your life. Live your life with a smile. Don't be afraid to spread love and kindness around the world. Don't listen to the media. Do something kind for everybody every single day, and just be nice to each other.
Great. So if the listeners want to connect with you, find out more about any of the things that you've been talking about, or what you're doing, what's going on with you, how would they do that?
These days it's so easy. I prefer everybody goes to my website and signs up for the mailing list there. That way we can keep in touch. I prefer to keep in touch with people through my website because you never know with Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. They may kick everybody off one day and then you have no contact. But I am on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. I'm on, my daughter's now got me on TikTok. So I'm pretty easy to reach. But yeah, I would love for folks to check out my website, and there's some pretty neat stuff on there. I've got once I start performing again, there's a tour schedule on there, or will be on there. I've got a new concert hall page on my website where I'm going to start doing live online shows every month. There's also, we're going to start a blog this year for this kind of stuff, just for positive thinking and positive living. And but I'm really, like you, I'm sure I'm pretty easy to reach. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on my website, and if they just want to come to Kansas City, just tell them to ring me up. I'll take them out for coffee.
So are you going to tell them what that website is?
It is darrendowler.com, DarrenDowler.com. soulfirewhisdom.com. And I would love to hear from you guys. So please sign up for the mailing list and say hello.
Okay. And if you happen to forget that, you can go to the radio website, soulfireradio.com, scroll down to Darren's name, and it's listed there as well. So thank you so much for being here today and talking about all this. There's a lot that I didn't know that you do. So I'm sure there's a lot that the audience didn't know about as well.
Well, I appreciate you having me on your show, and I learned a lot about you today too. I actually want to learn more about you, so I'm going to hit up your social media and start reading on you. I know some about you already, but I was listening to your talk at the beginning of the show. There were a couple of things in there I was unaware of, so I'm interested, because I'm also very, very interested in hypnotherapy, and studied for a while, a decade or so ago. Yeah,
Oh.
I was actually going to go to school in Tarzana, but I ended up on the road too much to do it.
Okay, well, as I said, thanks again for being here. And thank you to the audience for listening today. We have another great show planned for next week. Next week, my guest will be Carol Freeman, also known as Keto Carol. Carol is a certified ketogenic nutrition coach and hypnotherapist. She's a podcast host and also a stand-up comedian. So be sure to tune in next week. That's the 29th at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So I'm just going to say bye for now, and thanks again, Darren. Carol Freeman.
Thank you for listening to Soul Fire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soul Fire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.